Hallie's eyes opened to warm breath and scales. For a moment, consciousness floated in that strange space between dream and waking. The air around him was humid, carrying the scent of sulfur and something oddly sweet, like burnt honey. His body ached, every muscle screamed in protest as awareness crept through his limbs. Where was he? Then he remembered. The crash. The expedition ship breaking apart in the atmosphere of Dracon 7. A planet that wasn't supposed to have sentient life. The emergency pod. The impact. He should be dead. The warm breath puffed against his face again, and Hallie's eyes focused. Two pairs of golden, reptilian eyes stared down at him, each set mounted in a scaled head no larger than a basketball. The creature's dragons, his mind supplied helplessly, were perched on either side of his makeshift bed of moss and leaves. Their scales shimmered in shades of deep crimson and brilliant sapphire, catching the alien sunlight that filtered through the cave entrance. By the stars, Holly whispered. The blue one chirped an oddly cheerful sound, and the red one tilted its head, studying him with an intelligence that made his breath catch. These weren't animals. The expedition briefing had been wrong. Very wrong. Holly tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through his ribs, and he gasped. Instantly, both dragons moved. The blue one pressed gently against his shoulder, easing him back down with surprising care. The red one disappeared deeper into the cave, its claws clicking on stone. Easy, easy. Holly murmured, more to himself than to them. I'm okay. But he wasn't okay. His communicator was shattered, his suit was torn, and according to the fading heads-up display on his helmet, which lay cracked beside him, the rescue window had already passed. Command would have written him off. Standard protocol for a failed landing on an unexplored world. The red dragon returned, dragging something in its jaws. A piece of fruit, luminescent and purple, roughly the size of Hallie's fist. It dropped the offering beside his head and made a low, rumbling sound that might have been encouraging. Holly stared at the fruit, then at the dragons. They were waiting, expecting something. You've been taking care of me, he said slowly. Haven't you? How long have I been out? The blue dragon opened its mouth and released a small puff of smoke. 3 distinct rings floated upward before dissipating. 3 days? Hallie's throat was dry. 3 days, and you've been waiting. Both dragons bobbed their heads in unison, and Holly felt something crack in his chest that had nothing to do with his injuries. In all of humanity's expansion across the stars, they'd encountered exactly 14 sentient species. Most had been hostile. 3 had been indifferent. 2 had been cautiously cooperative. None had shown this kind of immediate, instinctive compassion. Over the following days, Holly learned. The dragons, he started calling them Crim and Azure for their coloring, were young, perhaps adolescents in their species development. They couldn't speak, but they understood far more than he initially realized. They brought him food, water from a nearby spring carried in their cheeks. They kept watch while he slept, one always awake, always vigilant. And they taught him about their world. Crim would draw on the soft earth with a claw, showing him maps of the territory, marking dangers with sharp slashes and safe zones with circles. Azure demonstrated which plants were edible by eating them first, always watching to ensure Holly understood. Together, they showed him the bones of other creatures near the cave and trance predators they'd driven off. While he was unconscious, they'd been protecting him, waiting for him to wake up. Why? Holly asked one evening, as the planet's twin moons rose over the horizon. Why help me? I'm not like you. I'm not even from this world. Azure pressed its head against his hand, and Holly felt the rumble of contentment through its scales. Crim curled up beside him, radiating warmth like a living furnace, and Holly understood. The why didn't matter to them. They'd found someone who needed help, and they'd helped. Simple as that. No politics, no protocols, no cost-benefit analysis. Just compassion, pure and uncomplicated. It was the most human thing he'd ever encountered. It came from dragons on an alien world. On the 10th day, Holly heard it, the distant roar of engines. A rescue ship, scanning the surface. Impossible, but there it was. He stumbled from the cave, waving frantically. His jury-rigged signal flare built from components Crim and Azure had helped him scavenge from the crash site, burning bright in his hand. The ship altered course, descending. But as the landing struts touched down and the airlock hissed open, Holly turned back. Krim and Azure stood at the cave entrance, watching, waiting, as they always had. A figure emerged from the ship. Reuben, the expedition's xenobiologist, her face registering shock at seeing him alive. "Holly, how did you?" She stopped, seeing the dragons. Her hand moved to her sidearm. "No." Holly stepped between them. "They saved me. They've been protecting me." Reuben's eyes widened as she processed the scene: the cave, the supplies, the two dragons watching with cautious intelligence. "They're sentient," she breathed. "They're better than sentient," Holly replied. "They're kind." He spent the next hour in frantic negotiation. Reuben wanted to report this, to bring back a full team. But Holly knew what that meant: research vessels, containment protocols, the slow machinery of bureaucracy that would transform Krim and Azure from individuals into specimens. "Give me a month," he pleaded. "Let me learn their language, their culture. Let me do this right, the way they did right by me." Reuben studied him, then the dragons, then back again. Finally, she nodded. "1 month. Then we come back, but on your terms." On their terms. As Reuben's ship lifted off, leaving supplies and promising to return, Holly walked back to the cave. Krim and Azure waited for him, as they always had. He settled between them, scales warm against his skin, and looked up at the alien stars. Humanity had spent centuries searching for signs of intelligence in the cosmos. They'd been looking for technology, for mathematics, for radio signals. They'd been looking for the wrong things. Sometimes, intelligence looked like two young dragons waiting by the bedside of a stranger, simply because he needed help. Sometimes, the most advanced civilization was the one that understood kindness first. Holly closed his eyes, smiled, and felt warm breath on his face. The little dragon brothers were still waiting, and this time, so was he.